All right, last thing I want to talk about here. Senior Bowl, I went live with Nick Martin, boots on the ground, 3 times last week. We talked about a lot of names, a lot of positions. The 2 that stood out that I think everybody kind of used as their biggest takeaways, and I saw a lot of mock drafts over the weekend coming out of the Steelers going after one of 2 positions, and that is an offensive center or a cornerback with their first-round pick. And names like Jackson Powers-Johnson, Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo, who I thought that was awesome. First off, MAC football. That's a Steelers guy right there. That is 100% a Steelers guy. But those seem to be your 2 positions if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, at least leaving the Senior Bowl. And there's a lot more. The Senior Bowl is step 1. We always kind of get a feel of where they're going. That field changes pretty drastically by the time the draft comes, but this is step 1 in the process, and it's good to be here. Center or corner? If you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, if you're looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, you going with the top center? You going with the cornerback with your first-round pick? What one are you more confident in, and what one would you make the move for?
Well, I'm looking at corner, I think, with that first pick, just because I think the corner class is a little deeper. There's a little bit more top-end talent. You look at certain mock drafts, and they're like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 corners going in the first round. And the first center isn't off the board until the second round, like early second round. So I think you can still find, there's kind of seems to be like 3 like really high quality centers in that first round. It's like Zach Frazier from West Virginia. There's Jackson Powers-Johnson, obviously, who's before him, and then Van Lynn, forget the first name, but from Georgia.
Yeah.
That guy was a first-round pick like 2 weeks ago, I swear.
I know, and his fall-off was he doesn't show up to the Senior Bowl, and I'm talking to Nick Martin, and he's saying, maybe he's a 3rd or 4th-round guy now. I'm like, oh, that's like wild to me.
By doing nothing, which, tells me that, this is all kind of arbitrary and that draft season can be a little silly in some ways. So,
yes,
if you're able to pick up a guy who only dropped to a 3rd or 4th round pick because he did nothing, when he's not supposed to, when he doesn't have to do anything. I don't know. That doesn't really change my opinion on him either way. It seems a little ridiculous that he fell that far for just not showing up to something. But that's to my point. I think you gotta take the opportunity to grab one of those top corners immediately. You can't wait around for those guys. You can wait on a center. So I guess that's why I think center is the more important position for the Steelers, but I think they can find their guy later in the draft, which is not the same for corner, I think.
Yeah, I think that the top end, I think the cornerback class, you could get a bona fide stud. This is a star. This is a guy that's going to come in here and immediately be an impact player. I think you could get that at 20. I think depending on how many guys are gone by 20, how many of those top corners are still on the board by the time you come around determines that for me. Because if you're past a Quinion Mitchell, if you're past a Kool-Aid McKinstry, if you're past all those guys, and you're looking at the 3rd Alabama corner that's coming into the draft, you're looking at those guys. Jackson Powers-Johnson, I think, is going to be a Creed Humphrey, and I think he's going to, become the next great center in the NFL, and I think that's worth it. But I also think if you could wait till the second round and get a guy like Zach Frazier, I think Zach Frazier is a stud. I think he's going to fit an Arthur Smith zone run defense or zone run offense very well. So I think that is something to consider. I just think that you could get, I agree with you. I think in the second round, you could get one of those top guys that you say, hey, this is a good pick. I will say that people try to make the argument and say a center's like a running back. You don't draft one in the first round. That is just stupid. That makes no sense to me.
Never heard that before.
Oh, I've been told it a billion times in the last week. Of you don't draft a center in the first round. Why would you draft a center in the first round? You draft whatever position you need. A running back, I get. A running back's lifespan is short. Jason Kelsey's 36 years old, man. The guy's, and he's still at Pro Bowls. He's still killing it out there for the Philadelphia Eagles. You could find a center and have him there forever. You're looking for a Marquise Pouncey. Marquise Pouncey spends 10, 12 years in the NFL as your most dominant offensive lineman. That's what you're looking for. I don't agree with that one. If the center's there, I think it depends on what corners are there and also how many corners are left on the board, because if you could somehow finesse your way into a second-round corner that's supposed to be a first-round corner like you did with Joey Porter Jr., I'm all about that. But I agree with you. I think I'm going corner. And I think then I'm going center. And if we're being quite honest, those are probably the only two positions as of right now that I'm thinking about if I'm the Steelers.
Really, that first, well, because if that, I don't know, if the corner works out the way that you kind of laid out, and like most of those top end guys are taken by 20, like,
Yeah.
would you not start thinking like linebacker? Like, would you not start thinking about maybe Jeremiah Trotter or something like that? Or like,
So I
I
could
don't
see
know.
an inside linebacker. I could see an inside linebacker. But I could see an inside linebacker. I think that does change things. I think that would be, but he's like the only one. Like he's the only first round inside linebacker that I think I'm like truly unless I'm missing somebody here. But I feel like he's the only one that's like this
Yeah, I
dude's
don't
going to
think
be a
you are.
stud.
Yeah, I
You
don't. I
know?
mean, I don't think you are, but I just think like, yeah. I mean, even I'm looking at Tankathon right now, and they don't only have They have Trotter as like as the number 52 overall prospect on the board. So maybe you don't even have to spring for someone that early. Yeah, I guess you're right in that sense. Like outside of corner and center, like there's not much that fits into a pick at number 20, like into that slot that the Steelers need immediately.
No. And I think you could sign a tackle in free agency and you could feel very confident about that tackle. I think that you could draft a tackle there too as well. But 20 is like I think the Steelers got lucky with Broderick Jones at 14 or whatever they moved up to get him with. Like those tackles, those like top tackles are typically gone by pick 20. By the end of the first round, you're like, all right, this guy could be good, but like, you never know. I think at that point it moves away. I think those two positions are huge. So I would think maybe safety too, like depending on what safety's there. But I think safeties you could find in the second round too. And safeties typically drop more than most positions. But I've seen people toss out like wide receiver. No chance I'm thinking of a wide receiver. No
Yeah,
chance I'm thinking of a quarterback unless, for some reason, like Jaden Daniels, just people are like, well, we can't draft him. We can't. We're just going to let him slide. But I don't see that happening either. I think center and corner are your top ones. Inside linebacker, I'd be interested in. Depending on how the board shakes out, I'd be interested in Jeremiah Trotter because I think he's going to be an absolute animal. And I think his draft stock will rise as we get closer. But I think those are the only three.
yeah, yeah. I was just because I feel like the linebacker thing, like just how many years have they done the like patchwork,
Yeah.
inside linebacker thing? Like it'd be real nice, I think, to just have a guy there that you believe in that'll be here for a while that you just don't have to think about moving forward.
Yeah. You got to shake off the Devin Bush rust and go, and make a move. An easy. Don't trade. Don't make a trade for anybody. Just,
Yeah,
be logical about it and go that way. But I agree. I think you have to shake that off. And I think that's especially with Landon Roberts being 30 years old, you're going to keep him for as long as you could and Cole Holcomb too. But if those two could be your guy with a rookie and then you develop that rookie into something really great, I agree. I think that's a missing piece that the Steelers have tried desperately to fill. And every year by the end of the season, you're just like, well, where would they be with an inside linebacker? Like, well, maybe it's time they find out. So I agree with that. I do agree with that one.